Alright, Phillip Island. Fun track. If you're new to it, prepare to draft, prepare to be drafted on, prepare for dive bombs and late moves, prepare to go defensive and watch cars spin out in front of you and watch cars spin out behind you. Keep the car on track, pointed in the right direction, and you should do pretty good here. Track's 20 degrees. I've seen it 18, probably 23, 24 will be a hot track, so keep that in mind. Setup, I have a 7 ARB. 8 possibly might be a little faster, but 7 I find just makes it a little steadier through these high speed corners. If you're having trouble losing the back end a lot, you may want to try 6. Setups in the description below. We'll go through the corners as usual in slow-mo and then run it out at full speed. So basically coming into turn 1, 5th gear. Now again, in a race, you may have to be on the inside going defensive. It's obviously a big passing opportunity, but if you got some space, you want to be right on these curbs. Be careful on these curbs. All these blue curbs, they are a little slick, so you can lose the back end, lose some control on them. Turning in here, there's not a real great marker. It's kind of feel. Depending on your settings, you may see sort of the rubbered in patch, so you can kind of follow that. You can use a marker on the light posts here, sort of as a turn-in point, but it basically comes down to a little bit of feel. I do like to get a little bit more inside than the tire patch is showing. It's just this is pretty cambered. You do want to, if you're using this camber, you do want to get in tight, but don't get on these curbs. These curbs are elevated. Some of these curbs on this track are elevated and some are flat. The elevated ones will push you and unsettle your car. The flat ones don't. They're just a little greasy, that's all. And just coming into this turn, just lifting on the throttle in 5th gear and then holding a little bit of throttle on just to keep that back end steady and picking up the throttle as quick as you can back to full power. Probably have to do a little bit of counter steering through that. If you're going as fast as you can, right on the edge, you'll have to counter steer a little bit, and then working your way over to mid-track in 5th gear. And basically, I'm sighting for this second last light stand here. Once kind of get beside it, I guess I'm just a little bit in front of it. Shifting down into 4th, little dab of brakes on cold tires. Obviously, maybe a little bit more of a brake. This track also on cold tires. Cold tires are always an issue, but this track I find is a little less punishing than others on cold tires, but you still do have to respect the cold tires. And then shifting down into 3rd when you're right about alongside this Marshall station. And again, keeping it tight. Some people may obviously be maybe a car width over, so you can kind of experiment with that, but I find holding the tighter line works best for me. And then just building up the power. And when you get to this second Marshall station, you really want to be at full power, close to full power. I had to lift there a little bit just to get the turn in. And just, yeah, working up from 3rd into 4th. And then just coming to the crest here of this downhill spot. Then once you're on the downhill section, I shift up into 5th. Mid-track, you don't really have to run this one out wide. You can take this corner in 5th gear full speed without much tire squeal. So that's what I prefer rather than extending the track out. But again, in a race, you may want to be on the right-hand side if you're going defensive, so keep that in mind. So coming up to the 100 boards, I do probably brake a little earlier than most, and for some reason or another I am on the gravel here. Don't do that. You want to be on the blue curb to open this corner up, but you do not want to be on the gravel. You will see why. Fourth gear, or fifth gear, braking down into first. Pretty hard on the brakes, and don't brake when you're on the gravel. That was, you can see here, ran into a little bit of trouble. But braking pretty hard, getting the car really slowed down so you can pick up the power as early as possible. Again, in first gear, and just, yeah, a little bit of trail braking and picking up the throttle early as you can. Again, this is one of these curbs that are raised, so I don't recommend getting on that curb. You can certainly give it a try, but I find it just unsettles the car too much. And then just opening the wheel up, letting the car run out. I believe you can get on this green patch without getting an X. I don't really like to get on that green patch. If you're getting on that green patch, you're probably not going to be setting your best lap. So keep that in mind. And then working up into third gear. So kind of coming at this sort of mid-track, shifting down, a little bit of brakes kind of right at the end of this curb here, shifting down into second gear, just after it, kind of between this Marshall station and that curb. Little bit of brake. Second gear, again, cold tires, you may want to just give it a little extra brake. This is certainly a spot you can spin out on. And again, I like to kind of hold a tight line here, picking up the throttle really early and shifting up into third. And exiting, using most of the track, but again, not really getting onto the curbs. If you do, certainly not a problem. Just stay off the gravel. That will cause a spin. And through this section again, not getting all the way over to the left in fourth gear right now. Yeah, if you get all the way over to the left, it just extends the track. You're not really going to scrub any speed through this if you take it tighter. The wheels won't be squealing, so this just shortens it up a little bit. And then you can hold it in fourth gear. It probably isn't going to cost you all that much by the end of this straight, but certainly if you're drafting off someone, fifth gear is probably the best way to go. I also like shifting up into fifth gear just for the sake of coming up for this next turn. I find it easier to be in fifth gear because I'm going to use this side road here as the marker to shift down into fourth. So just a little lift, a little bit of brake when it's cold tires, but just a lift on hot tires, fourth gear, and just kind of keeping a tire on this curb. So again, this is the flat section of curb, and you can see right up here it starts to get to that elevated curb, so you don't want to be on that when you get to it. Make sure you're back all four wheels on the track. And again, I like to hold it a tight line here. And again, in a race, somebody might be on the right side here, trying to get the inside line for the next turn, so you may have to be out on the right here if you're being defensive. And just picking up the power as early as possible, still holding it in fourth gear, just sort of feathering the throttle. You don't want to be drifting wide. Keep the tire squeal down to a minimum. And then at the crest of this ridge here where it starts to go downhill, so about the 50-meter board, getting pretty hard on the brakes down into first gear. And this one's pretty important. You want to really brake in a straight line, get the car slowed, because it is downhill, and as soon as you turn that wheel, if you're carrying too much speed, that back end is just going to kick out. So careful with that, especially on cold tires. This is definitely a spot the first lap or two where cars are going to be spinning out. And getting into the camber of this corner and just working on getting the throttle up back to full power as early as possible. And again, you kind of want to be mid-track to set this up for the next one, so try not to go too far over. You do want to set this one up because this leads to, you know, the super long straight, so you want to carry as much speed as you can through this next section, so you're setting yourself up. And then just working up the gears into second into third. Again, holding a bit of a tight line here. And then just unwinding the wheel. And again, this one, you don't really need to go all the way over to the full right-hand side here. Again, you're just kind of extending the track. In a faster car, you certainly would have to, but the skip's not going 200 through this section, so you don't have to go as wide. You can get into this turn without too much tire squeal in fourth gear, and then just shifting up into fifth once you get up to speed. And again, you don't really have to run it all the way out to the right hand side. If you do, especially when the tires are cold, you probably will come out here. Just again, be careful. This blue stuff is pretty slick. You can have your back end kick out on you a little bit, so just be prepared for that. You may have to do a little counter steer, do a little save. So yeah, it's a quick lap, or it feels quick anyway. It's 1:46.7. Pretty decent time, a little time on the table. So just be aware, it's in the race, it's going to be a little different for sure when you've got a car in front of you or a car behind you, because the draft here is going to probably knock a second off of your time if you're drafting off someone, so as long as they're fast. So we'll see you out there. Good luck. Try and keep it on track and avoid the accidents, because there are probably going to be plenty of them. So hit the like and subscribe. We'll see you out there.